Look closely at this projection of South Korea's National Pension Service. The models show that this massive sovereign wealth fund is on track to completely deplete its reserves by the year 2055. When that money runs out, the mathematical reality is brutal. To keep paying retirees without relying on government bailouts, the shrinking pool of younger workers will have to surrender over 26% of their monthly income just to cover the shortfall. South Korea is not an isolated case. We are watching a global structural transformation where the oldest old demographic, individuals aged 80 and older, is expanding on an accelerated trajectory, tripling to over 400 million people globally. Population aging has crossed over from a slow-moving forecast for the distant future into an active macroeconomic countdown that is stressing global markets right now. Historically, populations aged slowly. Industrialized nations in Western Europe, like France, transitioned from an aged society to a super-aged one over the course of 150 years. Today, economies in East Asia are executing that exact same demographic shift in less than a decade. To understand why that speed matters, we have to look at this metric, the Old Age Dependency Ratio, or OADR. This scale directly compares a nation's active formal labor force against its non-working senior population. When entry-level worker cohorts contract and historical baby booms age out, the ratio rapidly inverts. A collapsing ratio means a shrinking base of workers must carry an expanding top of retirees. To see how this breaks national economies, we can look at three distinct regional archetypes. First is the high-income crash. South Korea leads this category, driven by a total fertility rate of 0.72, the absolute lowest recorded worldwide. China is experiencing a similar massive contraction. In just 10 years, the country lost nearly 60 million adults from its core working-age cohort, while adding over 100 million people to its senior population. This specific structural imbalance was precipitated by decades of strict family planning regulations under the one-child policy. This diagram illustrates the resulting 4-2-1 family architecture. A single working child at the bottom node bears the implicit economic and caregiving responsibility for 2 parents and 4 grandparents. In high-income regions, these severely inverted age pyramids mathematically guarantee the failure of traditional pay-as-you-go social safety nets, which rely entirely on current worker taxes to fund current retirees. The second archetype occurs in developing economies. Thailand is experiencing a plunged birth rate of 0.87, dropping it into the trap of getting old before getting rich. Unlike South Korea, much of Thailand's workforce operates at the street level, in informal sectors that completely lack institutional retirement savings or pension coverage. This creates an impossible fiscal equation. The rapid expansion of long-term care needs threatens to overfill public reserves, but the shrinking working-age base severely limits the tax revenue required to pay for it. Experiencing demographic compression before securing a high per capita income leaves nations entirely exposed to unfunded public welfare deficits. Then there is the mature baseline, Japan. By mid-century, seniors will constitute nearly 40% of the total population, pushing the dependency ratio close to a 1-to-1 match between workers and retirees. To defend against this, Japan has systematically altered corporate seniority wage structures to ensure older demographics stay employed longer. They are also running an aggressive substitution strategy, actively replacing missing workforce capacity with heavy investments in labor-augmenting technology and health tech automation. Japan's survival strategy proves that maintaining economic productivity requires actively redesigning labor supply rules and deeply integrating advanced automation into everyday life. As labor pools contract worldwide, the shortage of available workers forces domestic services and logistics to adjust wages upward. This generates systemic cost-push inflation. The larger macroeconomic consequence is the capital shift. Aging populations move massive retirement reserves out of growth equities into static, safe assets. Because these yield as low as 2%, venture funding dries up, starving new businesses and dampening innovation. Population aging acts as a structural downward drag on national capital accumulation and gross domestic product. Sovereign entities now face a critical choice. They can implement dynamic, automatic pension stabilizers and capital-augmenting AI, or they can rely on political hesitation and periodic legislative delays. Regions that delay these systemic overhauls risk prolonged economic stagnation, abandoned localized infrastructure, and severe intergenerational conflict over shrinking public resources. The era of continuous, guaranteed labor force expansion is over. Future stability depends entirely on abandoning our legacy economic assumptions.